Welcome back to Les Schwab Tire Center's Outdoor GPS, presented by Fisherman's Marine and Outdoor. Now it's time for your weekend tech tip, brought to you by Chevy Silverado.
This week's Chevy Silverado tech tip of the week, not basic, maybe something that you've seen before. If you've chased sturgeon in the past, I'm sure that this is going to look familiar to you, but for those that haven't seen it, this is just a basic setup that Chris likes to use with your clients, and I'm going to kind of stick with there first with your clients, okay? Most of the time you got folks in your boat, well, maybe not. You're very well established. You've got clients that have probably fished with you a bunch. But a lot of times, new people, you know, with this kind of a setup could be kind of a challenge. Right now, casting, this and that. Does this setup that you use, rod and reel in particular, help with that? Is that something that you're concerned with your clients? How do you look at that?
I like trouble-free.
Okay.
And whether it be I'm alone, myself, fun fishing on my own, or whether it be with customers who could be complete rookies.
Gotcha.
Trouble-free, tangle-free is really important to me, and I'm always striving for that. This is a super simple setup. It doesn't take any rocket science to hook it up, rig it up. Should I bust it out and show us here?
Yeah. Let's set it right here on this mat, and we can get a shot with that Kershaw Tech Cam. So you've got the basic slider with the old school plastic slider, Oregon tackle typically.
I've got a Slido on. First thing I put on the main line is just an 8mm bead of some color, so we can see that coming. Don't worry, the fish can't see it. The sturgeon are virtually blind anyway,
right?
So don't worry about that. Put something of color on there so when you get it up close to the rod tip, you can see it. So 8mm bead, typical Slido with a snap on it. Most of the time, the sinkers I'm using are between 3 and 8 ounces of lead.
Gotcha.
Most of the time, 3, 4, 5 ounces of lead.
Again, shallow water.
That's a little 3-ouncer there. The line I'm using is 65-pound braid, same stuff we would use for most of our salmon fishing that we do. Some Power Pro, that's my favorite. That's what I use. So here's a tip that worked out really well for me many years ago. So I tie a pretty good size.
Keep it right down in here.
Pretty good size swivel here, by the way. So I tie my leaders, and by the way, that's a 4/0 Gamakatsu, just a regular bait holder octopus hook. And my leader material, with a pinch barb, yes. And I use anywhere between 3/0, 4/0, and 5/0, depending on the shrimp I'm using or the anchovies I'm using. I use a 5/0 quite commonly when I'm fishing anchovies, or a 3/0 or a 4/0 when I'm using sand shrimp.
Gotcha.
So somebody showed me this many, many years ago, and I believe it made a difference. And typically what we've always used for leader material was Dacron, 80-pound Dacron, which works fine. But, you know, salmon and steelhead and sturgeon, especially sturgeon, I believe, are very scent-oriented. They have an incredible sense of smell.
They do.
And my feeling about the old Dacron leader that we used to use was that if you're going to use it for more than a day, it starts taking on bad smells. So that anchovy or that herring or that sand shrimp that you put on the day before, and you may take it off and want to fish that leader the next day, and it'll work, but they start getting a little fuzzy and they're very absorbent. So they absorb oils, absorb scent, and if you let that sit on your rod for a day or 2 or 3 and you want to go use it again, it starts getting bad smells, just like your quick fish would start getting bad smells on it if you were to leave some anchovy or sardine or tuna residue on there and not clean it off. So I quit using Dacron, and again, somebody showed me this many years ago, and I started using 130-pound Power Pro or Tough Line for my leader material. It's a little thinner, it's very strong, it's very durable, abrasion resistant. Because it's very tightly woven, and oftentimes they'll have a kind of a waxy coating, it doesn't absorb scent and smell as much as that fuzzy Dacron does. And so since I've been using the 130-pound Spectra type leader instead of Dacron, I feel like I'm doing better, and my leaders last longer. And I feel good about using them longer. And to the end of my about 24-inch leader, I just tie a big overhand loop on there, and that's how I attach it to my swivel. And so it's easy to take off and put back on, or put a bait on and then put a new leader on and take it off. You could use a snap too. I'm not big on snaps. I just like the loop on there.
Well, I love the loop too, because like you mentioned, you can swap out different baits real quick. You know, if you've got, you mentioned stretchy stringing, sand shrimp on there, or even doing a combo where you might have two different styles of baits on there, and then your stretchy string and one over the top of it, if anybody ever does that. Doing a little sandwich sometimes makes a difference.
Yeah.
But I love that loop right there, because you can literally just take it off whenever you want to, slide it over your bait, and you're good to go. Are you doing anything special here for that big area?
Double overhand knot.
That's it. Okay.
Double overhand knot.
That's all you need to do, especially with a 130-pound braid. That knot ain't gonna break. If you came across a sturgeon big enough in 5 foot of water that's gonna break that knot, you're done anyway. What's the point? Just get it off and move on. Okay, so let's talk about rod and reel. What kind of rod and reel? I've seen people down there, and years ago, even when we were down there chasing them for keepers, that were using salmon rod and reel combos. Yeah. Don't do that. Okay, you can get away with it, no problem, right? It'll work. But you got to understand, you got to have a little bit of power, right? And you also want to be able to get fish in quickly enough that you can get them released without hurting them. Too much rod and reel, this is my opinion, not Chris's, is what I would recommend, okay? Yeah. A little noodle rod is not doing anybody any favors, especially you trying to fight them as well. But you got a pretty perfect setup here for that.
Yeah, this is a Shimano Terramar. It's an 8-foot rod, and it's rated 20 to 50-pound test.
Okay.
You can handle a tuna with this thing.
Right.
And I had to actually step up my size and beefiness of my rods a few years ago. Back when I first started sturgeon fishing down there in the estuary, we caught lots of keeper-sized fish, and smaller fish, undersized fish. And so we were using salmon back bouncers and we're doing fine. It was super rare to hook a fish over 5-6 feet long back then. Sure. I'm talking 25, 30 years ago.
Right.
Well, the fish that are there has changed now. Now all the fish there are big fish. It's rare to catch a fish under 4 feet now.
That's concerning all by itself, but it's a different topic.
Yes, it is. It's a different topic. But most of the fish are 5 feet, 6 feet, 7 feet long now. So I had to up my gear just so we could land these fish in a timely manner instead of stressing them out with salmon back bouncers like we used to use. And that was my main reason for beefing up my gear, is because the fish got bigger.
And the technology of the rod that you're using by itself is, they're very, very light. They got a ton of backbone. They're easy to cast. They're not like sticks, like old broomsticks that we may have used 100 years ago. You're talking about rods that are meant for that kind of pressure, although it was designed for tuna and saltwater overall. But you've got it backed with what size reel?
That's a 500 Dakota reel right there, and I've got lots of 65-pound braid on
Lots,
yeah. And you can put lots of 65-pound braid on.
Well, and that's the thing, having the larger size reel, that's not a monster reel. Obviously, you've seen these here about 1,000 times, everyone, which is a frustrating thing all by itself. But there's
close to 300 yards on it.
But it holds so much line and got great drag. It's going to be able to handle the fish that's out there. When those fish are 4, 5, 6 feet long, all muscle, fresh out of the saltwater, and they got nowhere to go but out and up. That's it. I mean, they're going to burn off a pile of line. You got to have the right gear. So much like Chris mentioned there, salmon gear, I'm okay. Sure, you're going to have a chance to land the fish, but remember, you're not going to be comfortable. It's going to really stress your gear out, if not break it, and it's really not good for the fish. We've learned this in the last 15 years, how sturgeon react, even though they're down there in the estuary, okay, that we are referring to. No matter where you are, those fish are extremely hardy, but nowhere near as hardy as we naively thought they were just 10 or 15 years ago. That's an absolute fact. I love the setup, though. Super simple, nothing too fancy. The tip on the leader material, though, if I ever get back out chasing sturgeon, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
Because it makes perfect sense.
It's your Dacron. Go 130 pounds.
Well, all those times that we've kept the Dacron on there, and it'd be brown or black, right?
Yeah.
And we would go, what the heck is going on?
And change your leaders frequently, too. Because even this Spectra material will absorb some scent, nothing like Dacron.
Right.
Change your leader material. I think that's important.
Makes great sense. Last question before I got to cut to a break. Have you ever played with colored leaders?
I have friends that have.
Okay.
And I'm not of the opinion that it makes a difference.
You mentioned it earlier.
Yeah.
They're virtually blind.
They're virtually blind.
They feed and live based on feel. Their barbels up front.
And smell.
And scent. Their scent is a long shot above a salmon, which smells in parts per million with an M, they smell better than that. So, I mean, it's something to take into consideration, hence the reason why we love ProCure products. All right, great tech tip, man. Thank you. We appreciate it. We're going to come back from this break. We're going to continue to talk estuary sturgeon with Chris Bertopoulos, and then we're going to talk a little bit of springers, because that ain't done, and he's going to be chasing them too here going forward. A little bit, yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of us are starting to think about different things. I know that I already am, but something that I can't really mention. William, I get it. All right, we're going to cut to a break. When we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with Chris Bertopoulos.
Outdoor GPS is brought to you by Yakima Bait, steeped in tradition, innovation, and fishing success. And by ProCure Bait Sense, ruthlessly effective.